So I mentioned in the last video that with if statements you have this block of smaller statements that are kind of run conditionally. If this is true, these statements will get run one at a time. I want to talk a little bit more about what counts as a statement. So basically a statement is a legal Java sentence. And I think I can explain that best by giving examples. So there are method call statements, return statements, if statements. There are other kinds of statements. I'm mostly going to focus on method call statements because that's what we're going to mostly see at this point. I'm just showing the other ones just so you see that there are other examples. So let's see. So method call statements then are basically a method call followed by a semicolon. So if you remember, method call is just the name of the method followed by parentheses, opening and closing parentheses, and if there are any parameters needed, any arguments need to be passed to that method, then they go inside the parentheses, and the statement ends with a semicolon. So let's see, how do you know though if you need parameters and what you want to put in for a parameter? Let's just refresh on that. So if we right click on the turtle here, we can see that the turn method, let's see, the turn method is inherited from actor. And if we go down here and see it's a void return type. So remember that methods with a void return type are the ones that are kind of like commands. So when you execute those are the ones where you'll generally actually see something happen in the world when you execute them. So if we say turn, and notice right here in parentheses there's this data type int in here. See, some of these, like get rotation, has the parentheses but no parameters. Get world. So some of these, and you can have a void type too that doesn't have any parameters, or you can have more than one parameter. But turn, it says here it needs one int. So let's click on that, and you can see if you type in, so I'll type in a number like 90 here and click OK, and you can see the turtle turning 90. So that's the what's happening with this method call. This one's just turning 7, just turning a little bit. The if state. So for this if statement, we have the if. This is our condition, and this is our statement, right? So and we could have more statements in here. I could have also stuck in after the turn 7. I could have stuck in a move 4 or something like that. This move 4 could be inside, and then we would only move if we were at the world's edge, which wouldn't really make much sense. Maybe we could stick it in here. But this is a little bit more complicated method call statement. So we have it's turn again, and again turn needs one input. Turn needs a number, right? But we have this more complicated expression that gives us that number. So how does this work? So this says Greenfoot get random number 40. This returns a number between 0 and 40, and then we do a subtraction. So what subtraction does is it takes this number on this side and this number on this side and subtracts the two of them and spits out a number. So eventually, after all the work is done for this whole expression, we get a number, and that's the number that gets passed to turn. So that's a method call statement. The other two statements that I'm just going to mention briefly, we have the return statement. So return statement basically says, I'm done with this. You're running along in this method. As soon as you hit the return statement, it basically says I'm done, and I'm when it has a value next to it, it says I'm feeding you back this value. You mostly see it in methods that have return non-void return types. Okay, so this one has a Boolean return type, and we have return statements return. So we can only return true or false because it's Boolean, right? So we can return a true value or a false value. So we have those statements, and then an if statement itself can be a statement. So we could have a whole statement, like a whole if statement like this inside the if statement. But like I said, mostly we're going to see, at this point, we're going to mostly see method call statements like this one, turn 7, or maybe a little more complicated like this one, where we have an expression that calculates a value that we pass into the method.